Hello and welcome. We are ready to begin the ceremony. This is such an extraordinary day. My name is Tracy Ranieri, and I'm the athletic director here at Oneonta. Never more proud than on a day like today to welcome you to the Dewar Arena here on SUNY's campus. Today, we will enshrine our highest achievers into our Hall of Fame and celebrate the pride and traditions we hold so dear in college athletics. The College at Oneonta Hall of Fame exemplifies the greatest athletic triumphs in our university's history and also allows us to celebrate the leadership of men and women of vision that have led us to this very incredible place in time. The college was established in 1889, and it is recorded that in that first spring of the very first year, our students organized an athletic association for baseball. Athletics are the window to the university, and 21 different athletic teams grew from there, weaving a tapestry of history into our university's narrative for the past 123 years. Today, we honor and recognize another class of self-starting individuals who embody the value-driven skills so evident in the college athlete. We established the Athletic Hall of Fame in 1999, and it is my honor to recognize previously inducted Hall of Famers in the audience today. I would ask that they would stand as I call their name. Ted Beers from the class of 1999, along with Kevin Crotier, Steve McMullen, and Allison Merchant Spagnoletti. That was our first class. In 2000, Garth Stam, Don Ball, and Don Alvin were inducted. Would you please stand? In 2001, Mike Pacintelik and Keith Benjamin are here. Mike. In 2002, we inducted Alex Brennan, our high school coach who's going to state finals next week. The class of 2003 is Don Flewelling and Don Jester are here. From the class of 2005, Doug Cook and Max Schummel. From the class of 2006, Kramer Harrington and Ed Leon. From the class of 2007, Kristen Morello-Shearer. Class of 2008, Elizabeth McGrail, our women's soccer coach. Class of 2009, George Wetmore and Vince Foti. Class of 2010, Dick Burr, Alicia Tull, and Doug Maycomer. And the class of 2011, last year, David Ranieri and Christine Fitzpatrick Monfit. An event like this can't take place without the help of a very dedicated group of professional staff, faculty, and friends of athletics. Could I please ask our Hall of Fame committee to stand up? Everyone from the Hall of Fame committee, thank you, Eileen. Everyone else, thank you. Thank you for your year-round commitment to making this event and this day so special. And I have to say a special thank you to Jeff Hazard, our Assistant Athletic Director, who is the chair of the Hall of Fame Committee, and Brian Jester in the back, our Associate Athletic Director, who's always paying attention to the details. And we can never forget faculty, student, coaches, and our staff for the privilege to work for Dr. Steve Perry, for his commitment to a winning experience for all of our student athletes. Dr. Perry? Dr. Perry? And there are many current coaches, current coaches in the room today, and I cannot thank them enough for their dedication to serving student athletes, giving of themselves so much every day. So can we hear it for our current coaches that are in the room? Big, loud. Thank you, gang. This event is webcast across the country, and I'd like to say a warm hello to our alumni everywhere, and a special hello to the Hall of Fame family members who could not be in attendance tonight. At this time, it is my great pleasure to introduce our president, Dr. Nancy Kleniewski.
Thank you, Tracy. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you. This is always such a wonderful event. It reminds us of the generational impact that sports has. We have a wonderful base of alumni who have been through the same programs that you, our current students, are going through. And they've gone on to succeed in sports and in life. So I love the fact that we have student athletes here. I try to go to as many games as I can, given my schedule. And I welcome all the family members here who are supportive of our new Hall of Fame inductees. So welcome and thank you for everything you do for the college.
Good morning. As Tracy mentioned, my name is Jeff Hazard. I'm the Assistant Director of Athletics and Sports Information Director here, and certainly it is always a proud thing for me to be able to serve as Chair of the Hall of Fame Committee. And every year, you think maybe there's not enough outstanding past athletes out there, but every year the class is they're just amazing people. So, and we got a chance to meet them all last night, and we did a show, and it wasn't too harmless, right? It went okay, and we had a lot of fun with that. So certainly it gives me great pleasure to begin today's induction ceremony. Our first inductee, just to give you some background information, Dr. Sall, he was a Distinguished Alumni Award winner from the college in 1989. He is a medical entrepreneur and inventor, and he also earned a Super Bowl ring with the San Francisco 49ers in 1984. It gives me to introduce his presenter, Mr. Gary Holway.
Not used to these things. I first met Jeff in October 1967 when he and a fellow classmate from Valley Stream came out for the freshman basketball team that I was coaching that year. And as a result of that, and as a result of the fact that his reason for coming to Oneonta was to use the curriculum as a pre-med program, the first person, as far as we know, to ever accomplish that, use an Oneonta curriculum to get himself into med school. And because of his frequent visits to the biology department, we had opportunity from time to time to chat. I sort of felt like a sounding board for where his concerns were, where he thought he was going, and maybe sometimes, not often, suggestions, because he was an excellent student throughout his whole career here. He graduated in '71. He immediately applied for medical school in Tulane, was accepted and excelled down there for 4 years. Graduating from Tulane in 1975, he was in the School of Internal Medicine, and he went to his first residency, I should say, in 1975 in Boston, in a program in the Boston VA hospital that was affiliated with the university, and there he did his residency in internal medicine. And in 1978, he passed his board exam in internal medicine, and along the way decided to pick up a degree in Chinese medicine. He married his wife, Jeanette, who's in the audience with us now, in 1977. And in 1970, by the way, my wife and I were very fortunate to have been invited to that wedding and to that reception, where we had the opportunity to meet Jeff's parents, his other family members, and Jeanette herself. In 1979, he and Jeanette took a one-year excursion through Southeast Asia on a shoestring budget, as I understand, visiting China, Nepal, India, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia for the purposes of seeing how traditional medicine was done in the undeveloped regions of those countries. He's always been open to new ways to approach the field of medicine, and that was one example of his early interest in this area. Upon their return, he was offered a teaching position at the Stanford University in internal medicine, which in itself is very rare for someone to even be able to get a teaching position at Stanford. And at the same time, he enrolled in his second residency program, this time in physical medicine and rehabilitation. And that was a rather unknown, uncommon specialization at the time. And primarily it was hospital-based treatment of amputee, stroke, and spinal injury or degeneration practice. Jeff saw it as a window of another opportunity, though, and upon getting his certification in physical medicine and rehabilitation, as well as in electrodiagnosis and neurophysiology, decided that sports medicine might be the perfect venue for this particular form of practice. So he and a fellow colleague, Michael Dillingham of Stanford, decided to open a sports medicine clinic. Fellow physicians in the Palo Alto region of California told him that it was a very foolish venture, that there was no need for such kind of service. The first year they were an immediate success. And the rest is kind of history. They opened their sports medicine clinic under the acronym SOAR, and I'm not going to get into what that actually means, but they opened that clinic and immediately received all kinds of response. At the end of their first year, Bill Walsh, who had just taken over as coach of the San Francisco 49ers, contacted him and said he had done his search and had determined that Jeff and his partner were the two people that he would like to have as the team physicians for the San Francisco 49ers. That began a 26-year history of association with the 49ers, and the reason that Jeff has this Super Bowl ring on his finger today. One of more than one that he could have had. Today, they are the team physicians for, one of the teams, the New York Giants, is a 2-0 lead going into today's game. And they won the championship in 2010, so they're going for another one. But anyway, they're the team physicians for them. They're the team physicians for the San Jose Sharks hockey team. And they are the team physicians for the, I always have trouble with this, Palo Alto? University of Palo Alto? Santa Clara University. They're team physicians there. Jeff served as the personal physician for 30 years before giving up that position to a junior colleague in his organization in 2011. They're also the team physicians for many of the Stanford University teams. In addition, they've had the opportunity to treat Olympians, other professional athletes, even amateurs who have sought their services, and they also have done a lot of private sector service as well. They are the physicians for several of the Silicon Valley businesses, treating their injuries and just general keeping care on them. And they've also distinguished themselves with international venues as well. He's continued to be active in the academic areas, published many books, book chapters, peer-reviewed articles, and during all this time has also been academically involved in research. And one of the things that has impressed me the most and throughout this career is the drive to always find ways to avoid the scalpel. He's worked and worked and worked and worked on coming up with devices, has invented devices, has manufactured devices, patented devices that are designed for the minimal invasion of the spine. Most notable of these was a device called IDET, and without getting into what that is, it's a way of treating the spine by electric stimulation of the herniated disc that causes changes in the disc consistency, which alleviates the problem without surgery. He was recognized for this in a Newsweek article in 1999. He's a member of several societies. In 1984, he was one of the founding members of the North American Spine Society. Today, they have over 5,000 physicians of similar bent in the organization. In 1996, he was the president of that organization, and in 1996 found the time to found another medical association, the Physiatric Association of Sports and Spine and Occupational Rehabilitation. Also, I found out by doing a Google search that he is one of the select few members of the International Society for the Study of the Lumbar Spine. If those were all the things that he'd accomplished, I think he would probably still deserve this, but unfortunately, time-wise, there's a little bit more. They founded a business. As I recall, that was Orotech in 1984. They researched, developed, invented, and patented, again, devices aimed at minimal invasion in the treatment of spinal disorders. That company went public in 2000. They sold it to a larger conglomerate in 2002. 2007, he and his brother Joel established a new company called LauraMed, named in honor of their mother, Laura. And that company is today still doing this research, development, manufacture of, patent of these kinds of devices. And ENT is one of those devices, and I did a little Google search on that, and there is now, and you get I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of strikes on that, is now essentially a technique that is used for ear, nose, and throat, and also on occasional spine and other types of non-invasive materials. So with that, I guess I've got to indicate that what he is most proud of, he says, out of all these accomplishments, is his 36-year marriage to his wonderful wife, Jeanette, and of his two children, Rachel, who was an All-American swimmer at Indiana and water polo player at Indiana in her own right, and is now a practicing physical assistant in the Los Angeles area, and his daughter, Nicole, who is working on her third master's degree, this time a master's in education. So with that said, I would like to give you Dr. Jeff Saal, my friend.
Whenever I hear an introduction like that, I keep thinking that they're talking about somebody else. Because I keep thinking I'm much too tired to have done all that. Those are some busy times. I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee. I'm honored and blessed to be here at this time. The what I want to spend some time talking about, and hopefully not too much time, is the things that I learned here at Oneonta that allowed me to do the things that I have done since I have left here. There's a statement we always make when we, in medicine, either when we accomplish new research or make new developments or receive awards, we always talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. None of us does things alone. And that's one of the things that being here in Oneonta in this wonderful environment gave someone like me. As I told the group last night, when I came to Oneonta, I came as a skinny kid with a dream. You can see my picture there, I was 17. When I left Oneonta, I was a skinny kid with long hair, ready to embark on a life's journey. My dad really wasn't interested in me going to a college where I was going to play sports. He said that he came from a family of immigrants, put himself through school, didn't think sports was important. I disagreed with him and played sports while I was here, and that's when I hooked up with the likes of Doc Holway. Back then he was Doc, he wasn't Gary Holway to all of us. And one of the things that I bonded with Doc was his no-nonsense, no BS style, and you only got what you earned. No one got anything they didn't earn. Wouldn't listen to complaining, wouldn't listen to excuses. It was only about what you earned. I met a number of professors here exactly the same way. You only get what you earned. It's a famous quote from Gandhi, who said, "The man you imagine yourself being is typically the man you will become." I think that's a very powerful statement, because if you aim low, you'll end up low. If you aim high and you work hard, then you will have the potential to achieve. Don't ever think low of yourself, always aim high. At some point I decided that I was going to live a life with a purpose, that I was going to do something with my life. I don't know when that switch clicked on. I'm not sure it was when that picture was taken when I was 17 and I walked on this college campus, or sometime afterwards, but at some point a switch clicked. I always envisioned myself as an athlete and used the athletic things I learned in the credo to be able to help me move forward. Vince Lombardi said, "We all will fall, but the measure of the man is what he does when he gets up." And that's one of the things athletics teaches you. It teaches you how to respond to failure. I always tell my students, you don't learn anything by having done something correctly. You actually learn more by doing it incorrectly and then figuring out how to do it better. When you pass a test and you did well, you think somehow you're so smart, but you didn't realize that part of that was luck. You have to, once again, earn everything. In boxing, the top trainers point out that those fighters who believe that all their skill comes from natural talent will fail against a fighter who honed his skill and courage on hard work. The hard worker gets to own their accomplishments. They always feel they can improve. You internalize that feeling. Similarly, an athlete who has taken performance-enhancing drugs often comes to believe that it's the drugs that made them great. They lose their edge and confidence rapidly. There are some wonderful or not so wonderful examples of that playing out on the national stage right now. If they begin to fail at all when they're tested in competition, they crumble. This was pointed out by Dan Gable, the most accomplished wrestler of all time. Al, I hope I'm not saying things that you're going to say. Okay. He said it was easy to beat a wrestler on steroids. He said because once you showed them they could fail, they fell apart under the pressure of the match. Whereas the athlete who had worked hard will always feel they can work themselves out of any dilemma and hardship. Once again, the hard worker owns their accomplishment. They have an internal belief that they will survive, they will prevail. You own that, no one gets to take that from you. So artificial confidence does not lead to true success. Hard-earned confidence based upon continued, ongoing efforts to prepare and improve will. I use that same internal dialogue to help me succeed, because each point in my career, I was told to me, which are my most motivating things anybody can say to me, and that is, no, you can't. All you have to do is challenge me with no, you can't, and everybody knows who knows me will know that I will shove that somewhere that doesn't belong to me. So I heard, no, you can't go to medical school from Oneonta. Why are you even going to Oneonta? No one goes to Oneonta, goes to medical school. I said, well, that's what I'm doing. And I was the first graduate of Oneonta to go on to medical school. As Doc mentioned, when we went out and started to open up our sports medicine practice, which seems commonplace right now, but you have to understand in 1981, there were no sports medicine practices in the United States. None. Zero. We went out and said, we're going to start a sports medicine practice. All the doctors at Stanford said, you're crazy. No one does that. And we said, well, we can do that. And we did that, and a year later, Bill Walsh called us and said, can you not only take over the 49ers, but can you revamp the entire medical system that the 49ers deliver, which has now become the new delivery system for the entire National Football League. So the ethic of hard work does pay off. I remember when we first started working with the 49ers, I had this one day when I said, okay, this is really cool. I get to do my first real difficult treatment on Joe Montana, who has over the years become a very close friend. He's a neighbor of Jeanette and ours. We see he and Jennifer all the time and their kids. So I was doing a procedure on Joe, a back procedure, and Joe passed out. And sometimes when you pass out, your blood pressure drops, and his eyes rolled back, and he had a little bit of a seizure. And I had this headline that passed in front of my eyes, and I said, okay, my career is over. Here it is. He said, Stanford doctor kills star quarterback. And I said, wow, all that hard work down the drain, just like that. Fortunately, he woke up, and the best thing about that was that when you have an experience like that, you don't remember it. And so to this day, Joe does not remember that happened to him, and he thinks I'm the greatest guy ever, and I'm thinking, whew, I'm glad no one told him about that one. There are lots of stories about treating pro athletes I could tell you, but I can't, because a lot of those are confidential, but I met some wonderful people along the way, very close friends. Ronnie Lott remains a very close friend. You've heard the story about Ronnie Lott getting his finger cut off at halftime during a game. That is true. It wasn't his whole finger, it was just the tip of his finger. Ronnie said he has loads of other fingers, he didn't really need that one, and he wanted to go back in the game. And when Ronnie had his, quote, game face on, you didn't really disagree with him. The other things we learn from sport which you can take with you, and I mentioned some things about use of drugs, integrity. One of the things you can learn from sport, once again, is that your effort, your honest effort, will lead to an achievement that you get to keep. If in any way that you earn that achievement, and that achievement has somehow been soiled by some form of cheating, you will regret that for your entire life. I learned I was able to carry forward in business the importance of winning. We do the same thing when we in business, try to move processes forward and make deals and do things and make new products and patent things. It's a fight. It's just like an athletic fight. You fight and fight and fight for everything you get. No one hands you anything out there. As Doc mentioned, I want to also acknowledge my most important teammate, my wife Jeanette. Can I make you stand up? Hey. Now, she didn't know that I actually looked like that picture when she met me. Otherwise, we probably would not have gotten married. So I just want to close in saying that Oneonta is one of the true treasures. I'm not sure that all the students who are sitting here fully can understand where you are at this point in time in your life. I can stand back a bit and look at that in perspective. I've had the opportunity to give speeches like this at Stanford, at Yale, at Harvard, Columbia, you name it. And I can't think of a place that is more special than this place and the type of attitude this place has in allowing all of you to be successful in your future lives. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Susan Lee Miller, just to read you some of her athletic accolades. She has the distinction of being the first female individual NCAA championship competitor. She did so in 1989 at the NCAA Cross Country Championships, where she placed 54th, and that is still our highest place finish to date. She was a team captain and a 3-time most valuable player of her cross country squad. And here to present her, Mr. John Hurley.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Congratulations to all the new inductees today and all the 110 in history. It's always nice to see those that have been in the past show up and be with us on this occasion. Susan and I are trading long and short remarks. I'm going a little longer than 3 minutes, and Susan's going 1 minute, and I hope Jeff does not give me the hook. A couple of points I'd like to make is that this was an unusual situation in cross country in the mid and late 80s. The girls' team, prior to the mid 80s, had 8 years of competition. And there was no indoor track facility, no indoor track team, no outdoor track facility, and we have great facilities now. This very building is the indoor one, and a wonderful track and turf field to run on outside, and no track team. So cross country was like a 1/3 running program. And runners, being a conditioning sport, it's not heavy on skills. Team sports are made up of a lot of skills and some conditioning, but running or swimming, it's all conditioning, and you've got to do it year round. And you have to have people that are willing to do it at least the 9 months of the year that you're in college, if not 12 months. But anyway, because of that and other considerations, the beginning phases of the women's cross-country team went 8 years, and their record at that time was 0-34. Now, at that point, Susan Lee and Bonnie Lee show up, 2 twin sisters. And it was my second year of coaching the girls after I'd coached the men for a number of years, taken a few years off and came back with the girls. The next 4 years, mainly because of those 2 runners, Susan and Bonnie, one loss record went from 0% in 8 years to 85 to 90% in 4 years. It's about the most drastic switch around that I can recall. And I used to teach the history of sports, and I used to know statistics of that type. They even had they have a league now, cross-country only conference championships for colleges that are in that boat. They don't have track and field, but they do have cross-country. We were in that boat 20 years ago, and there was 55 Division III colleges in New York State. About 35 had women's cross-country teams, and the bottom 5 were usually those teams that didn't have track and field, because you have to train all year round. We were the one team that was usually contending at state meets and NCAA regional meets for the top 6 or 8 or 10 of the 4 years that Susan and Bonnie were here. I mention that because I want to make sure that people know that we're celebrating today. But there's 2 people that gave us those 85 to 90% one-loss records in 4 years. Okay, I'd like to mention the fact that when people reach great standards, like Susan making the NCAA championships, in 1972 the Title IX legislation came through for women's equality in sports, and that was a terrific thing. 11 years later, not as well known, but it was the year 1983 where the NCAA took over women's championships. And that was a big deal because, number one, they made it very strict Cross country, there were 8 divisions around the country. There were NCAA regional meets that you had to be in the top 1 or 2%. And then they also paid for the trip for all the athletes. That was unusual. The first time I sent anybody to the Nationals was Hall of Famer Jim Deaver and his co-captain Al Pastore. And I was told at the time, they're going to Chicago, but you get them a bus trip to Albany, call up the Albany coach, and have them take those 2 fellows to Chicago, because we'll save money on you not going. And that's what happened. Coach didn't go. A few years later, there was another guy that I sent, and I was told, call up Albany, and Albany said, we're not sending anybody this year, but Potsdam is. So I called up the Potsdam coach, and he met my fellow at the Albany airport and went on a 3-day trip with him, with his own fellow. So that's how strict things were on money in the early days. But now all the athletes who can meet the stiff criteria and their coach can go. If it's in Honolulu, you got a trip to Honolulu. If it's in New York, you can come from Honolulu to New York. Anyway, the times have changed, and it's terrific to see this great facility right here and the great facility in track and field 400 yards away. Now, thinking about making something happen that is unusual, it's a long shot. I like to use the word gumption. And this summer, there was a few instances of that. A fellow named Neil Armstrong, an American, who was the first man on the moon. And he passed away this summer at age 85. You can imagine the planning and the goal that he had. And the day that he woke up on Earth and said, I'm going to the moon and back the same day. But he did it. He had a goal, he worked hard, and he's not afraid of taking that chance. There was another fellow 10 days ago. He jumped out of a plane. It was in space somewhere, and it took him 10 minutes to go through space and then go through the atmosphere, and he landed. You wondered when he jumped out of the plane whether he thought he'd be alive 10 minutes later. But he was, because he had gumption. There was a girl from Cooperstown that made the triathlon in the Olympics this year. She went to high school in Cooperstown. And 200 runners, a 2-hour event, swimming, biking, running. She came around the last curve with 3 other international runners. She was in the top 4. In the sprint in, she came in 4th, but it was an amazing achievement. And people from America and from Otsego County, Cooperstown and Oneonta were proud of a person who did such an accomplishment. Roger Bannister in the Olympics this summer was a fellow that when I was young, he was a big name. He was the first 4-minute miler. And he's now in his mid-80s, but he was still being interviewed. He lives near London. Since he broke the 4-minute mile, which some people have said was the greatest individual athletic performance of the 20th century, he 1,000 times by 300 runners, that mark has been broken. But he was the first. And you have to have gumption to be the first when no one has done it before. Now, I say on that list, I put Susan. And let me conclude with a little story. My favorite film is Chariots of Fire. I've seen it 8 times. It came out 20 years ago, but it was the Academy Award-winning film of that year. And it told the story of 2 British runners who were long shots, but they had gumption, and it was a great story. It was a true story. And one of them won the 100-meter dash, 24 Olympics, and one won the 400-meter dash. They were the toast of London, they said. 60 years went by, and the last scene of the film is a funeral of one of the 2. And the 2 fellows that were their teammates 60, 65 yards earlier were coming out of the church, last minute of the film. And in summary and in pride and in tribute, one of them said to the other one, well, he did it, didn't he? He ran them off their feet. Well, I say to you, Susan and Bonnie did it too. They ran them off their feet. Here's Susan.
Good morning. I wanted to thank the Hall of Fame committee members, my family, and for their support, my twin sister, Bonnie, and who was my former teammate, and most of all, my coach, Mr. John Hurley. Mr. Hurley both encouraged us to do our best, as well as made our practices and races fun, and that is the lesson that I have taken away from my years at Oneonta. To train hard, but make sure you are enjoying what you are doing. And here I am, 22 years later, still running, still competing, and now I'm a proud inductee in the Oneonta Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hurley.
Our next inductee, even though I know Mr. Cook will do a great job introducing him, probably needs no introduction, as he has spent quite many years in the city of Oneonta doing many, many things for the community and the college. But just a couple of his highlights before he comes up to stage here. He was the head wrestling coach here from 1966 to 2004. He was the men's athletics director from 1979 to 1988. And then he was the director of athletics from 1989 to 1994. He still teaches as an adjunct professor here at Oneonta in our physical education department. Maybe we'll never let you go, we hope. But at this time, I would like to bring up his presenter, Mr. John Cook.
My first instruction from Jeff was I have 4 minutes and 20 seconds to do this. So let it begin. Congratulations to the Hall of Famers, to the new inductees, to President Nancy Kay, and of course to Jeff, Brian, and Mr. Hazard. You guys did a great job, and Tracy, super job. It is my privilege to introduce your next Oneonta State Hall of Famer, Albo, Coach Sosa. Now, as a former colleague, and yes, I coached with him, youth soccer, this is how it went. Because I was Al's godfather. Not a lot of people know that. John, I'm going to tell you how it's done. You do it my way, because that's how it's done, and it's done right. Don't do it any other way. You do it my way. So I had the opportunity to work with Al, share experiences, observe Al's talents as a coach, as an administrator, and most importantly, as a person to admire. Now, he's from a long ways away, a place called Babylon. It's in an island or some kind of island in New York. Then he immigrated to Cortland. That's a little city nearby that some of you athletes compete against. And then he wound up competing in Cortland, and he developed some physical anomalies, something called wrestlers, you call it cauliflower ear. You know, I thought it was a vegetable, you know, but. And then he developed what is called a wrestler's walk. Those are bad knees, I guess. They need surgery, so Doc, I was going to be talking to you. In 1966, 46 years ago, it's amazing that Al's life and his career developed at Oneonta. He became a professor at the college in the phys ed department. He was a wrestling coach, like they said, second longest running coach in the country, you know, until well, 2004. He finished with 284 wins, 17 winning seasons. Dwayne, don't worry about it, you still have time. Bert, most importantly, coached 12 All-Americans, 12 Scholar All-Americans, and 77 All-State wrestlers. Now, Al had 30 wrestlers in a normal season. Dwayne, you got 38, so you're moving up. That's really good to hear. But most importantly, the wrestling team was Al's second family. Unbelievable. But wrestlers, listen to this one. Al would always invite them over to his house, but they could never date his 4 daughters. Just want you to know there was limits to what Al would do. Okay, but he loved you guys. He still does. He believed athletes also needed to be part of the Oneonta community. This one I really love. To be a positive role model. We hear that all the time. But actions speak louder than words. So, what did he do? Columbus Day, the pit run, the wrestlers had to be there. Just look at the Daily Star. Who's out in front? You wrestlers. But that's as far as you get. You get the first mile and then boom, you're done. All right? Because I know how you wrestlers are. You got those short speeds. You got those little legs. Okay? That's okay. Community service, really important to Oneonta State. And I want to congratulate the community because I was firsthand. I got to see it at a small little elementary school. People would come down and help us. Al was inducted in 2008 into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame for his lifetime service. Unbelievable. Well, it doesn't stop there with Al. In 2010, he becomes the recipient of the SUNY Athletic Commissioner's Award given to a retiring administrator and coach. Another prestigious award. It doesn't stop there with Al. Al, in 2011, he receives, this one I love because Doreen loved this one, Otsego County Conservation Association. You got to figure, where's this one? Is dedicated to his other passion, cycling and pedestrian trails, but his leadership and stewardship. Most importantly, Al is never one-dimensional. He's multi-dimensional. As I said, he was a head coach, he was an educator, director of athletics, men's athletics, and he was instrumental in the 1980s in hosting the very first women's SUNY tournament. Now, can you guess what sport that was in? All right? Ask the young ladies back there. What do you think was the first sport the SUNY held? Do you think it was soccer? Nada. Okay? Wrestling? Nada. It was cross country. So, Al was involved in that. He has a passion about women's athletics because he has 4 daughters, but it's there. All right? He worked to develop an upstate private/public conference for wrestling. Al is a role model with his love, his passion, his commitment, his work ethic, and his cleaning. Doreen helped him with that one. This is evident to the Oneonta State athletes, his colleagues, and friends and family. Al loves Oneonta. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Al, Coach Sosa.
Wondering about this. As John said, 4 daughters, come home, I'm in a state of panic. I printed up my speech on the computer and then I couldn't get it to print on the printer. So, Megan and Kelly, don't worry, Dad, we'll download it for you. So here I am. Here's my speech, okay? I hope I can get it to stay upright. That's the only problem. If I get lost, please give me a second. Thank you very much, John, for those wonderful words. John and his wife, Nancy, Dorian and I, we go back many, many years. Great stories, and we could tell. Hi, Ryan. And we can tell some wonderful stories, not just about coaching, raising children, camping,
in the Adirondacks, and it goes way back. I can say the same thing about John Hurley. And when John first came to town, he got arrested one night. He was running on the streets at 1 o'clock in the morning. The police had never seen anybody out running at 1 o'clock in the morning. Nobody ran at 1 o'clock in the morning. But John has been a passionate runner all his life, and he was from Boston. In Boston, they must run at 1 o'clock in the morning. So that was an introduction to the Oneonta Police by John Hurley, running it. I would like to thank the committee for this nomination, and most particularly for the woman who nominated me, Miss Eileen McClafferty. Eileen, thank you very much for the nomination and the support of the committee. I'd like to congratulate the other members up here with us on their introduction. This is a wonderful, wonderful recognition, and is certainly one of the things that we will all reflect on as one of the proudest moments of our lives. As you can see, I also would like to introduce, before my daughter walks out, my family who's here with me, my oldest daughter Megan with Ryan, and my grandson William, my other daughter Kelly, who is here to support me. Two of my other daughters, Erin and Brianne, were unable to make it. And most importantly, my partner in life, 38 years, 39 soon to be, my lovely wife, Doreen. There's a couple of people in the audience that I also would like to recognize that were very, very important to my work here. One of the individuals who's here and didn't happen to be noticed on his way in was Hall of Famer Bill McHugh. Bill? There are several members of past teams that are here. One who really meant to surprise me, but one of his teammates blew it on him. Four-time All-Stater Chucky Marino. Chucky? And his partner in crime, Tom Cimetti. Tommy? I'd like to believe Chucky's here just for me, but I came to find out that his brother Dominic, who we also tried to get to come to school here, but just didn't seem to get it to work out, Dominic's son is now wrestling for Oneonta State. Anthony, right? Okay, which is wonderful. So the tradition continues. I also would like to introduce my longtime assistant, recent inductee into the National Hall of Fame, National Wrestling Hall of Fame for lifetime service, 25 years my assistant, and my savior many times, Mr. Al Shear. Al, where are you, buddy? Please stand up, back there. And the longtime team academic advisor and mentor and good friend, Dr. Jay Fleischer. Jay? So I've been told I've got 5 minutes. Oh, it's you, Al, maybe 6 or 7. Stories are wonderful things, and we learn a lot through stories, and records are things that have come to pass and are in the books, and thanks to the hard work of Jeff and the people in sports today, we are better able to keep records of things that have come to pass. When I was talking with Jeff about some of the things, I asked for some dates, and he said, we don't have records from back then. The history is not good. But I know when I made a decision to pursue coaching, it was not something my father wanted. He wanted me to be an engineer. But because of my contact with high school coaches and my involvement with sports, I knew that I wanted to be a coach. And that meant I had to go to a school for physical education, because at that time, all coaches were physical educators. I went to Cortland, and it was through that experience that I was exposed to Oneonta. I mean, I didn't even know how to pronounce the name. Oneonta? It just didn't make sense. But because of my experience at Cortland as an athlete, my sports involvement, I was recruited by Oneonta to come here to be a physical education teacher, to be their head wrestling coach, and potentially even become a football coach, because I had played football at Cortland as well as in high school. 44 years later, I retired. My whole career was spent at Oneonta. Now, many people would say, boy, you spent your whole career in one place? And I proudly say yes. I was fortunate that while here, I was able to have many roles. I was a teacher in the classroom, which I was very passionate about for 44 years. And still, as you've heard, do a little bit of it part-time because I love the relationship and the contact with the students and the opportunity to work with young people and the inspiration that they give you and the enthusiasm that they bring to life. I was a coach for 38 years and was very fortunate during that time to have an opportunity to work with some outstanding individuals, wrestlers, young men who were my family. And then the opportunity came to be involved in athletic administration, an athletic director for 15 years, and then elected to be the department chairman for physical education, and that was when I decided it was time to dedicate some time to the teaching aspect of the physical education department to a greater extent than I'd had the opportunity to. A little bit about that later. During the wrestling, there's some things that I'd just like to highlight, some things that were first. The one that comes to my mind is the birth of our first child, my daughter Megan. Now, Jory and I had been married 2 years, and we were pregnant. I say we because that's the current term, right? You say we now. At that time, she was pregnant, okay? And the due date was the 24th of December. That was great. Our last match of the season was on December 10th, 2 weeks. It was a 2-day trip. We had to go to Rochester, and of course, oh, you can't go. She was still working. I said, Dora, you'll be fine. Well, if I have this baby while you're gone, you will never, never regret it. Well, you know, the fear of God was put in my mind, and I told the guys as we left for the trip, I said, listen, if anything happens, if Dorian goes into labor or anything, we're going to get home in a hurry. Well, wouldn't you know it? On the middle of the match at St. John's Fisher, I get the phone call. The athletic director comes over and says, Coach, you got a phone call. And I said, oh, no. I mean, I had a sense you never get a phone call. And there's no cell phones. This is back in 1976. I go over and, Bert, you better hurry up and get home. I'm in labor. I'm going to have the baby. Now, we didn't have any family in Oneonta, and we were both Long Island transplants. Doreen, of course, was, worried. First child, and of course I was very concerned and in Rochester. I went back to the bench, told the guys, get this match over in a hurry. The next guy that's out there, his ankle gets broken. Our guy. We bring him over the side, put ice on it, tell him to keep it up. Next 3 guys go out there and get pins, they forfeit, we get another major decision, we're on the road. They don't shower, they don't eat, and at that time we drove in vans. And I'm driving, I probably set some land records, but I didn't get any tickets. We get to Syracuse, and I say, guys, here's a busy bee. You go in and get something to eat, and I'm going to go get a phone call. Well, I couldn't find a phone. Get them back in the van. They all had all this food. A couple of wrestlers down there, Tom Cimetti, Chucky, were on that trip. Another fellow who's now in town, going to open a restaurant, Frankie Lopez, he was the guy with the broken ankle. We go right to Oneonta Hospital. We don't stop at the gym. We go right to the hospital. The whole team is, in the waiting room. Of course, Frankie, we send him to the emergency room to get his ankle looked at. And lo and behold, we get there at 11:30. Megan is born at 12:12. All's good. Nancy and John had given us these Le Mans birthing classes. I get up there and I'm ready to coach. Pant blow. Oh no, Doreen says, shut the you know what up and hold my hand and be quiet. Let me do my work. The rest is history. Oh yeah, the police came and basically told the team they were going to be arrested if they didn't leave the waiting room because they were making so much noise. 18 years ago was the second pit run in this town. The pit run was a community event to raise money for students at the Oneonta High School in memory of a state trooper who was killed trying to stop a robbery at a local grocery store. I said this would be a wonderful thing for our team to do. At that time, there was no discussion of community service. Community service was not something that was widely engaged in as it is today. Our team in that first year, everybody ran, and we raised over $600. Within 5 years, we were raising over $2,000 every year, and to this day, and I give credit to Coach Ritter and the team as they continue that tradition of community service. And that community service not only involves the pit run, work on community parks. They were recently awarded a special national award for working to help Katrina victims, and community service and a sense of community by the wrestling team was always very, very important. At the beginning of the season, I would bring a good friend of mine, the local chief police, in and say, Joe, his name was Joe Redmond, I want you to talk to the guys. I want you to come in with your biggest guy on the police force you have with you. I want you to wear your guns, and I want you to look official. I want you to tell these young men that they're part of a community. They don't live outside the community up here on this hill. They have a responsibility to the community, to be part of the community, and to be responsible. And he did that. And he did it in a very positive way, in such a way that helped the team members appreciate their involvement in this community, and viewing Oneonta and their educational experience here is more than just going to classes, and hopefully developing a sense of identity with the college and the community as an important part of their development and growth. The wrestling team was one of the first teams to have alumni contests, and this year Coach and the team are hosting the 39th annual alumni wrestling match. Some of the alumni that are here and that I hope to see a little later in the day are back to participate in that event. Why did we establish that? Because we wanted to maintain the connection to the college, the involvement with the team, and that sense of family, and a feeling of commitment to what this education was as a foundation in their life. In 1990s, the Wrestling Division III Coaches Association established academic, All-American, and scholar teams. We consistently, through the work of people like Jay Fleischer, the support of the assistant coaches, and commitment to the importance of their education as being the number one thing that they're here for, don't miss a practice, but the number one reason why they're here. And we consistently, Oneonta State consistently has more Scholar All-Americans and ranks in the top 20 in the country among Division III teams as a scholar athletic team, something that we are very, very proud of. When you're part of the wrestling team, you're part of a family. And I can say over the years of coaching, I had many, many brother teams here. Certainly Chucky being here with his brother Dominic, and Dominic, I'm sure remembering me trying to recruit him to come to Oneonta, is an example of that. I can go over some of the names: Joneses, Lubins, Tyrannas, most recently Tobiases, Bennett's, Wins. At one time, we had 4 brothers, 4 sets of brothers on the team, and had more brother combinations than any team in the country. A sense of family. Many times, our parents of the teams would be here at contests, bringing food, support in the stands. If it was away tournaments, having all sorts of things ready for us, we'd get back to the motel and they'd have special food. If we were hosting a home tournament, they would work at the concession to help make money to support the team. Many times when we were traveling, we were invited on our way home from matches to stay in the area and stop at one of the houses where one of the parents would host the team for dinner. What a wonderful experience that was. All the team members would get to see where their comrade in arms had grown up, the family that they were part of, the house they lived in. And there were some really neat experiences. One of them, I think, that was most memorable, when we stopped on our way back from a trip out west at a wrestler by the name of Dan Perry. He was a 2-time state champion in Section 3 and was from New Hartford. And Dan's parents were very, very avid supporters of the team, and they invited us over for a pasta dinner, and the guys were just all excited, some home cooking. But Dan had a pet. He had a very special pet. It was an alligator. Now, I'd never known anybody have a pet alligator before. I mean, we had a team trip, and Bobby Jasadis brought his pet boa constrictor with us. Doreen was not too happy with that because she happened to be in the van with a boa constrictor, along with 2 of our children. But that was besides the point. In this case, Dan had not fed his alligator for 2 weeks. And, of course, what does he feed them? Live mice. He wanted the team to come in and watch and pay very closely to the attack technique of the alligator so they could practice the quickness and the intensity of the alligator as he let the mouse loose in the cage. The guys talked about it for the rest of the season. And takedown practice was a little bit more intense because of that. Wonderful things as a team. And those memories will stay with not only those team members, but with me and our assistant coaches that were part of the process all our lives. In 1979, I was appointed as the men's athletic director. Just like when I was the head coach, I was the youngest college wrestling coach in the country when I started. I was 21, 22 years old. When I became the athletic director, I was the youngest athletic director in the conference. And of course, you know, I was always the one giving the gopher jobs, you know, Sos, go do this, Sos, go do that. Well, one of my first challenges was to move our men's lacrosse program from club status to varsity status, which we did. And Hall of Fame member Corky Lynch, our first men's lacrosse coach, was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year. At that time, Title IX was new, and you heard Coach Hurley, and you're going to hear some things from our women's field hockey team that's being inducted about Title IX and some of the challenges that were out there for women's athletics. Having 4 daughters, I was very avid about women's athletics and wanted to see the advancement of women's sports. I couldn't buy a poster for my daughters that would show a picture of a woman soccer player because we hadn't won the World Cup yet. After that, things really blossomed. But at that time, Title IX was new. Oneonta was hosting the first cross-country championship that I was going to be part of as the host athletic director. And I approached our women's cross-country coach, Joan Kingsley, and I said, Joan, would you like to have your women participate in the conference championship? At that time, the women were under AIAW, but there were a number of teams in the conference. I talked to the other conference athletic directors that were willing to participate. And Oneonta, because of the combination, the connection, and the commitment, hosted the first SUNY championship in the history of the conference. And of course, today, we know that women's athletics is flourishing and still continuing to develop and is a wonderful, wonderful thing. In 1989, I was elected as the director of the women's athletic department. And so for 20 years, men's and women's athletics had been split, thereby being both the men's athletic director and the women's athletic director, we became one department. And that has been a tremendous thing as far as I'm concerned in creating a sense of camaraderie between all of our athletes and a commitment of all of our coaches to grow and develop as an institution and as an athletic department as a whole. I'm very proud of that. In 2003, I was elected to become the department chairman. Coach Dwayne Ritter had been my assistant for 5 years. Excuse me. He was a hardworking, committed, and extremely enthusiastic and intelligent young man. He came here from Wilkes University. He was a Division I wrestler. He was a Scholar All-American. I wanted to give the program over to Dwayne. He was the person who I wanted to see take it up after I was going to retire. The timing was right. So I decided that would be my last year as a wrestling coach, retired to become the department chairman. It was a wonderful opportunity. Through that time period, between that and the time that I retired in 2010, was able to increase the number of offerings, very popular, and offerings within the department, developed 3 new minors in dance, personal training, very limited to sports development, and in outdoor education. What a wonderful career. I also, as you heard from John, was very active in our community. I'd been director of the local YMCA, had been a football coach for a semi-pro team that's now defunct and called the Oneonta Indians, youth soccer coach for 15 years, and Joe Bernier is back there, one of my comrade coaches, along with John. Wonderful time we had with our children, coaching our teams. I don't know how much our daughters enjoyed having us as coaches, to be honest. You know, I would always have a hard time leaving the game back on the field. We'd come home, and I'm sure if you were to ask any of the daughters, and I coached all 4 of them, yeah, Dad was my coach. But that was besides the point. It was still a wonderful experience for me. And I still take tremendous pride about the opportunities I have, and we have as a family, to be part of this greater community. And I can't thank you all enough for your support by being here, for all of us, for the opportunity and pleasure it has been to work and live in this community, and thank you for this honor.
Our next inductee is Billy Kapogiannis, a men's soccer player for us here from 1985 to 1988. He was SUNY Player of the Year in 1988. He was a 3-time All-Conference player, 2-time All-State, and he played in the Senior All-Star Game. And his career culminated by being drafted by the Baltimore Blast in 1989. Here to present Billy, his Hall of Fame coach, Garth Stam.
Think of yourself as a volunteer coach of an under-14 youth soccer team. You need a plan to get the team organized and ready for the season. A possible plan would be to play a lot of 5 versus 5. If you add a keeper, it would be 6 versus 6. Start by selecting 2 players with defensive ability and 2 players with attacking skills. Now select a player with the skills and ability to play the midfield position. A player with a talent to link the defensive players to the offensive players. Another way to vision this link is to think of building a brick wall. The mortar or cement you use to hold the bricks together would hold the bricks in a solid position, present the link or the midfield player of your team. If you are fortunate, the player you select to play this midfield position would be a Billy Kapogiannis. There are players that play the midfield position, and then there are special players with specific playing abilities that can fit in the midfield and make your team successful. Billy was that special, talented midfield player that could and did receive a ball, turn a ball, shield a ball, pass the ball, put a ball into space, move with the ball, move without the ball, creating space for teammates, and go forward and score goals. I remember his first goal during his freshman year, scored in a 2-1 win over Syracuse University. He scored 6 goals in his second year. He scored another 6 goals in his third year and scored 8 goals in his senior season for a total of 21 career goals. Goals are wonderful things. They create wins, and Billy was that person, special person that did that. Billy was selected 3 times, all SUNY player. 2 times, all New York State player. And a tremendous honor, in his senior year, he was selected SUNY Player of the Year. Billy, you have been a huge plus to the Oneonta State and Red Dragon soccer programs. I'm pleased and proud to introduce Billy Kapogiannis as a 2012 inductee to the Oneonta State Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Coach, for those wonderful words. First, I'd like to thank the university, the athletic department, the Hall of Fame committee, and especially the Director of Athletics, Tracy Ranieri, for this great honor I'm here to receive today. I would also like to congratulate my fellow inductees who join me today in receipt of this very special award. When I received the call from Tracy this past spring, I was sitting in my office in New York City. Thankfully, the door was shut as I began to get choked up, trying to come to terms with the recognition I was about to receive. It goes without saying that being inducted into your school's Hall of Fame is the ultimate honor an athlete can receive. I feel very fortunate and blessed that I was able to experience the College of Oneonta, as well as be a part of this prestigious soccer program. When I would return to Oneonta for Alumni Weekend or to participate in the alumni soccer game, I would venture into the field house to look at the displays of the many plaques that are in this building to read about the Hall of Fame inductees. As I stared at those plaques, I thought to myself, what a true achievement or honor it would be to be included with these outstanding athletes, coaches, and individuals. As I stand here today, I truly am humbled by this honor. One does not get to this stage without the guidance and support of others. I would like to recognize and sincerely thank a number of individuals who have contributed and have been a huge influence in my life. First and foremost, my parents. You always sacrificed for your 2 kids and installed values at an early age that shaped me to be the type of person that I am today. Your hard work, ethic, set an example and inspired me to drive forward, persevere, knowing that hard work and dedication would give me the opportunities to achieve the many successes in life. To my brother Chris, thanks for taking your younger brother under your wing, and especially thanks for taking the blunt of the punishment for all the windows we shattered as we practiced in the backyard. I also had the fortune of being surrounded by a number of great coaches in my life. To my youth coaches and to my high school coach, thanks for setting the foundation and teaching me the fundamentals of the game. Your countless hours on the field did not go unnoticed. Now I'd like to say a few words of a man that I truly respect and the person that was much more than just a coach. That's you, Coach Stam. You guided me through my 4 years here and always pushed me to perform at my very best. You were one of the main reasons I ended up here in Oneonta, knowing you will always watch over me and have my best interests in mind. The values that you taught me also shaped me, and I truly believe your influence has made me a better person. Joining you in the Athletic Hall of Fame further solidifies what a great honor I'm receiving today. I cannot thank you enough, Coach, for the impact that you've made in my life. To my teammates, I would not be here without your support, dedication, and teamwork. For those of you who are here today, thanks for sharing that honor with me, and if you could please stand. You supported me then, and you're here to support me now, and I can't express what that means to me. The memories that we shared, both on and off the field, will remain in my heart and will always be cherished. I hope that one day you will also be rewarded and recognized for your achievements and join me as a member of this distinguished group of individuals. Last but not least, I would like to thank my family, my wife Melissa, my two beautiful daughters Julia and Sophia, for their unconditional love and support. Having you here by my side today to receive this very special honor means the world to me. I love you guys. Finally, for the student athletes that are here today, just a few words. Continue to strive to be the very best you can be. Practice like it's a game, and always challenge yourself to be better than you were yesterday. And remember, as the great Jim Valvano once said, don't give up. Don't ever give up. Thank you.
Our next inductee, member of the softball program for 4 years, 4-year starting player for us. What a special player she was to watch play. She was a member of our first 2 NCAA tournament and SUNY championship softball teams. She was a 2-time all-conference player. She was a 2-time all-region player, and she still ranks among our career leaders all time in many offensive categories. And last night I alluded to the fact that she is still the career leader and the toughest to strike out, which if you watch softball in baseball, I mean, strikeouts can occur very frequently, and she struck out less than 1% of the time in her career, and she had over 500 at-bats. So pretty special. And here to introduce her, another Hall of Fame coach, Mr. Don Fewelling.
You can sit down now. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks to all the new Hall of Famers. Al, I'm going to tell a story about you, so relax. I was a student in Cortland when Al was there as a wrestler, and I roomed with wrestlers. Dwayne Whitaker was my roommate. Wrestled with Al. Al was one. You heard all the fames and things that he's got today. Let me tell you what, he was one bitch as a wrestler. If y'all got a house cat at home that brings you in a mouse, remember this? You see the mouse come in and the cat pats it around a little bit, then all of a sudden crunch and it's over. That was Al. Great technician. All of a sudden, bang, match was over. He was a great wrestler, good football player. Also played some lacrosse. Al, congratulations. There's a advertisement on TV now by Verizon. Maybe you've all seen it. It's a little young man, a Latino man, playing the tuba. And his parents are out there and they got an iPad. And they're how proud they are of this young man who's in this recital getting ready to play this tuba. And I happened to think about, as I was watching that, watching my beloved Yankees this year, thinking about how proud we are as parents of our kids and all the different things our kids do and how proud we are of them. Well, as coaches, when we have athletes that achieve the best they can achieve as an athlete and now have a chance to be a Hall of Famer or go in the Hall of Fame, as coaches, we're super proud. And I stand up here today really proud because I've got two people up here, Missy as a softball player and Jim Coon, who played for me 30 years apart, going in the Hall of Fame, both from the Binghamton area. Jimmy was one of my first recruits as the basketball coach here, did great things for us. And then Missy was one of my last recruits here after a 35, 36-year career. And the first person out there that I'd like to respond to and like to have her stand up is Chris LaBarre. Chris, would you stand, please? This is Missy's mom. And I'll tell you what, she was probably part of the key for me recruiting Missy. Because Missy didn't say much, and she's probably not going to say a lot when she gets up there today other than maybe taking a swipe at me. But Missy's mom was at every game that Missy played, I think. And we really appreciate your efforts and all the things that you did for her. Missy's mom was a great athlete in her own right as a softball player. As a coaches, we're always putting a puzzle together. All the coaches know what I'm talking about. We have a puzzle that we put together for our teams. When I was a basketball coach, you had to have a point guard. You had to have a center. My point guard of 1973 to 77 is here today, Kevin Crotier. I was thinking of his brother I had 15 years later. Great player, tough competitor. Our point guard, our leader. And when I recruited Missy 30 years later, she fulfilled the same role for our softball team. A great point shortstop. Simply put, Missy LaBarre was a great softball player. Wherever she played, a great team followed. Came off of 2 state championship high school teams before she came here. So she was a winner when she came here. Like as I said, she was our point shortstop. Her physical attributes, fundamentally sound, quick bat, the quickest bat I've ever coached. She led the nation in foul balls every year, I think. We had a scrimmage with Colgate down here one day. She hit 25 foul balls after one pitcher. The pitcher was done right there. Again, quick bat. We had to teach her a little bit over the years how to hit the changeup and off-speed stuff because if a pitcher threw a fastball, forget it. She could kill that. Great glove. Made all the basic plays every time. Our Derek Jeter. She had a strong, accurate arm. When she came out of high school, she was a second baseman. When she came here, I moved her to shortstop because she had the strong arm. She could turn the double play. She could pitch if needed. In other words, pitching today in softball is a lot of the game. She could have been, if we needed her as a pitcher, and I developed her as a pitcher, she could have been one of our best pitchers ever. Quick story about a trip to Florida we took. Team went down there, we were playing in a tournament where they had all championship teams from all over the country. We were playing. We go out to eat that morning, we get to breakfast. The eggs looked a little runny. I was a little concerned. By the time we got to the field, I looked at my team, they all looked like Kermit the Frog. Every one of them was a little green. I looked around, we're getting ready to play. Missy's over throwing up in the garbage can right next to the field. Uh-oh, this is not good. We're looking for where the nearest bathrooms are. If you got 15 or 18 girls, having a close bathroom is very important. Well, we play that game. We couldn't start Missy. Missy was throwing up too much. Our pitcher started to struggle a little bit about the 5th inning. I look up, there's Missy throwing over on the side. I go, what the heck is she doing? She comes up, she says, I'm going in. I says, no, you're not. She says, Coach, I'm going in the game. Okay. She goes in, we win the game. She plays a little bit. 2 hours later, we got to play the #1 team in the country. We wind up losing 1-0. Missy goes 3 for 3 against a pitcher that played in the pros, had no problem, and we got screwed at the plate by a call late in the game. You remember that? Against the #1 team in the country. Things like that you'll never forget as a coach. Her mental side, great anticipation. Great athletes have great anticipation about what's going to happen in a game. Missy had that. She understood the game of softball. She got big hits in the biggest games, made the biggest plays in the biggest games. That's what Hall of Famers do. She made her teammates better. She worked with pitchers. Our junior year, she was part of about 130 wins. Our junior year, we struggled a little bit with our pitching. After the season was over, she walks by me, she says, get off your ass this year and recruit some damn pitchers. I went out and got 2 pitchers. She worked with them. Missy was not always politically correct. She came to us as a winner. She left as a winner. She loved playing softball. Every time she took the field, she wanted to be the best player there. And as a result, as her coach, I kind of stayed away from her. I let her do her thing. Because why mess with perfection? I give you very proudly to be part of that wall out there, Missy LaBarre.
With that being said, this is going to be short and sweet. I'd like to thank my family, my parents who spent many years traveling, taking me to all my tournaments. I'd like to thank my coaches, Bill Clinton, Dale W. Cook, Flo, Sprienzi, you're out there somewhere. There you are. I'd like to thank my teammates, because without them, I wouldn't be here. There was 9 of us on the field, not just 1. And I would like to thank the women's field hockey team for breaking ground for us here at Oneonta. So thank you, ladies. And thank you.
Our next inductee is Dr. James Coon, member of our basketball program from 1971 to 75. He was a 3-year member of our varsity basketball team. He was a member of our first ECAC tournament team. He was team co-captain in 1974-75, and for his career, he averaged in double figures in scoring. Here to present Dr. Coon is Doug Cook.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Jim, for giving me this opportunity to introduce you. I first got to know Jim when I was an RA at Toby Hall in the early 70s. I was a resident advisor, and Jim was one of the freshmen on the floor. Jim followed the soccer team that I played for with Coach Garth Stam and Max. Good to see you here today. And I would follow his basketball career. I think life is about the choices that we make, and hopefully we make the right ones most of the time. Those of us who have been to college know that this environment provides us with many opportunities to make choices since we're away from home. Well, before this time came for Jim, he had to make the choice of which college to attend. You see, many of his family members had already chosen Oneonta, but Jim was being recruited by many other colleges to play basketball. Oneonta's coaches, Marsh and Flewelling, helped Jim make that decision. And they knew how to get his attention. You see, on the day of his walk around campus, it was just your normal day, and they talked about his playing time and his role on the team. But it was a Thursday night, and just across the way, they walked him past the gymnasium and opened the door. And it was that door that really opened Jim's life. You see, it was girls' night. And when that door opened, all he saw was girls, and Jim's decision was made. Jim had a great shot from the outside, smooth player, could score points with any team, from anywhere on the court. But once he was at Oneonta, he had another choice to make. Did he want to play for personal records? No, he chose to be a team player. Played great defense as well as offense, and he did whatever the coaches asked of him. Several years into his basketball career, Jim went downtown. It was a St. Patty's Day. It's where most of us go on the night of St. Patty's Day. I know I did. And he saw a girl on the bus, and he met her a little bit later and decided to buy her a beverage. And that was a choice he made. Well, that soon began a relationship with Rosie, who supported him as a member of the cheer squad. And now they're happily married 34 years later with 3 wonderful children who make them extremely proud, Ryan, Danae, and Whitney. Speaking of marriage, Jim was my best man at my wedding 38 years ago. 5 minutes before I was married to my Oneonta sweetheart, all the guys were in the church hall waiting, and Jim had us playing some basketball. And if I recall, you let me win that game of horse, didn't you? Well, Jim came to Oneonta to play basketball, but he left with so much more. A fantastic education, a great wife, and a strong passion to help others through education. Throughout life, before, during, and after his Oneonta days, family has always been of central importance to Jim. And we don't often get the opportunity to thank our family publicly for the things that they've done for us. These next words come directly from Ryan, Danae, and Whitney, Jim, and they're for you. Our dad used sports to teach us lessons about life. Through sports, he taught us the concepts of responsibility, cooperation, teamwork, respect, work ethic, and the importance of remaining active. He instilled in us the competitive drive to keep striving, to do more, and to continually better ourselves through practice. Sports gave us the confidence to keep trying, pushing, and to never give up on something that we really wanted. We learned to put the team's needs ahead of our own, that practice makes perfect, and that through sports, we can feel 1,000 emotions, but mainly joy. Our lives have been shaped by sports, and we couldn't think of a better way to have grown up. Our dad has been and continues to be our life coach, and we can't thank him enough for all the lessons he'll continue to teach us in the future. We thank him for always being there and couldn't have asked for a better father. Now, we've been sitting up here on soft chairs, and it's time for audience participation. I'd like to remind you of what a family man Jim was, so if his family who's here today could just please stand and remain standing. All of the family, thank you. If you've ever played sports at Oneonta or anywhere else, could you please stand? And I've told you what a family man Jim was. If you've ever had a parent, would you all please stand? Doesn't that feel better? Please help me welcome my friend and fellow Hall of Famer, Dr. James P. Coon.
Well, good morning. You have been sitting awfully long, and Doug, thank you for doing that, because I was actually going to ask him to do that myself, so thank you very much. But I've never had a standing ovation, so I really do appreciate that. Dr. Kleniewski, SUNY Oneonta President, Mrs. Tracy Ranieri, SUNY Oneonta Athletic Director, Mr. Jeff Hazard, Sports Information Director, and I understand Assistant Athletic Director, former SUNY coaches, Coach Flewelling, former athletes, former and fellow inductees, family, friends, and guests. Now, imagine that after I said all that, you think that this is going to be a rather formal discussion. But let me do a few things. I'm also here to thank some people. First of all, I'd like to thank my good friend, Doug Koch. And Doug may not be aware of why I asked him to introduce me today, but in my sophomore year, I was thinking about dropping out of college and not playing basketball and going on with life. Matter of fact, Coach Flewelling had actually got me a job in here in Oneonta because I told him I was going to drop out. Doug was my RA and my friend, and Doug had a way of asking reflective questions, and he kept asking those reflective questions that caused me to stay in college, to go into athletics, to stay in athletics, and I never would have gone into education if it wasn't for this man. So I'd like to thank Doug very much. He's a great friend of mine. And I often think of Doug when I look at movies like Courageous, and I don't know how many of you saw that. It's about a Christian man's responsibility to raise young children. And within that, they define the term virtue, which is the habitual and firm disposition to do the good, and to do it proudly and promptly, which means you do it because you know it's right, and you do it with pride and pleasure. And that is Doug Koch. He's a person that lives with pride and pleasure as an RA, as a friend. We were in each other's weddings. Karen, his lovely wife, his daughter Rebecca is here, a new mother. Raymond is here. Rebecca's husband Justin's here. Doug has now retired as a food service director throughout the country. He made a decision. He didn't want to do it regionally, so he settled down in Winchester, Virginia, where he was the Soccer Association assigner. But he rose to a very, very high level of profession, and I'm very, very proud of Doug. And more recently, Doug has been battling cancer on several occasions. Doug has decided to enter in an experimental program in New York City. Doug is the type of man that if he can help others live, he will do it. Doug is a man of virtue, and I'm very proud to call him my friend. So Doug, thank you. I pray for him every day, and I invite you to do the same. I accept this nomination with humility and pride. When I first got the call from Tracy Ranieri, I had no idea why she was calling me. I was sure it was about an alumni donation. I was sure it was someone that was going to be introduced, and then when she asked me to be an inductee into the Hall of Fame, I had no idea she was talking about me, especially when she asked me, by the way, what did you do at Oneonta? She said, as Al Sosa said, we didn't keep statistics back in there, so can you send us your stats? And I said, Tracy, I have no idea what I did. I wasn't that type of guy to watch those types of things, but I really am truly, truly honored and blessed because it's given me an opportunity to do a couple things, to go back and think about my life before Oneonta, my life at Oneonta, and now my life after Oneonta. And it actually has given me an opportunity to thank some people in a more public fashion, and that's why I'm here today, because I think it's more about them than it is about me. I first of all thank my father, Walt Coon. I call him the Joe Biden of Binghamton. My father was from Stratton, Carbondale area. This is not a political speech, but when I listened to Joe the other night, I said, that's my father. That's my father. You know, he stood for things. He stood up for them. Carbondale, Pennsylvania. He hitchhiked to Binghamton, New York. Met my mother, Dorothy Ballas. Actually, Dorothy's father at the time was my father's boss. They met, they got married, they had 10 children. Catholic family planning, 5 boys first, gang. 5 girls second. So we come from a family of 10. My mother is all about love, plain simple. She's a Hall of Fame mother, plain and simple. We need a Hall of Fame for the mothers of the world. When we were children, we had very little time with our mothers because of 10 kids. But one time we had was when Mom gave haircuts. We couldn't afford to go out and have haircuts. My father didn't earn a lot. He's an IBM laborer. We were poor. We didn't know it, though. We didn't have much. So Mom cut our hair. Right, Mom? And there is a joke that Dad didn't want to change her. She got, pregnant, and you stayed that way for 15 years because you didn't want to buy you new clothes. But when we went downstairs and we had our hair cut, it was a time we had with Mom one-on-one time. And here's what Mom taught me. Jim, you don't have to like everyone, but you have to love everyone. That was my mother. She has lived her life that way. Everyone knows it. And I'm very, very honored that she's here today. This is a tremendous venture for her all the way from Johnson City. And it's very difficult for her to make the journey, and I thank her for that. So my mother, Mom, I love you, and thank you again for all we've done. I'd also once again like to recognize my lovely wife, Rosemarie. They're all crying down there, so I can't help it. You look in the mirror. I did meet my wife here, and it's interesting, back in the 70s at Oneonta, it was a pretty critical time in history. There was a lot of tension on campus. Vietnam War, assassinations were going on with John Kennedy 10 years earlier, and Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, civil unrest, the onset of the civil rights movement, and all of those types of things, and we all played it out at Woodstock. How many of you were at Woodstock? Any here at Woodstock? Okay. No one's going to admit you were at Woodstock. Okay, I understand. All right, and we all played it out there, but the point is that on campus, when you went to a basketball game, usually you would have the pep band, you'd have the white cheerleading squad at the time, you had the kick line, and the black population felt they were misrepresented or underrepresented, so they started a rhythm squad. Well, that went all fine until they finally figured out that one of them had to use the name of Coon to cheer for. So they actually went out and recruited my wife, who was very happy, the only white on the all-black rhythm squad, to say Coon. And that's how one of the ways we actually met. But the truth is, she stalked me around campus. Everywhere I went, her and her friends stalked me. It was terrible, Coach. I nearly came to you one day and said, I got to get out of town here. But I tell you, she's the love of my life. The best thing that she has done is give me 3 great children. Ryan, who's now managed a movie theater down in Gainesville and is finishing his master's in tourism, recreation, and entertainment. Danae, who's a school psychologist north of Boston in Massachusetts, and had an adventure getting here yesterday. And Whitney is with me in North Carolina as a second-year math teacher in the state of North Carolina, Lee County. I'm very, very proud of them, as you can hear from notes that they gave to Doug, but I couldn't be more blessed with a wife who raised those children a lot of times in my absence, and I appreciate that. I'm not the most patient guy. So one of the things I often say to people, there was a story recently about a married couple married for 50 years, and the priest looked down at them and says, ma'am, did you ever think about divorcing this young man? And she said, divorce, no, murder, yes. And I think sometimes that's the way we roll, dear, right? But she stuck with me, and I appreciate that. I have, in case you're not aware of this, Dr. Kleniewski, 5 of the 10 children I describe actually are Oneonta graduates. My sister Pat is here, she's an Oneonta graduate. My brother Den's an Oneonta graduate. Bill, who's here. Actually, I think Bill is now on campus giving a tour to his son Aiden, because Aiden's thinking about coming here. He's a junior in high school right now. And let's see, Tim went to Albany, Mike graduated from here, and then Pat. So 5 of us actually graduated from Oneonta. Each of you have made me a different person. You've added a different quilt or piece to my quilt. Each of you have strengths, and I truly appreciate that and all that you've done for me. I'd also like to recognize my brother-in-law, Tony Alduino, my wife's brother. And he's one of the best sax players in the world, by the way. He is a retired teacher from Susquehanna Valley, where Missy went to school, and he was wondering why Mr. Alduino came to breakfast this morning. She thought maybe he was checking up on her. But he has cut many albums. He's a great brother-in-law, a great support, and his girlfriend Melanie is here, and I thank them for coming. There's a Greek sage that said, of all the things that wisdom provides us to make life happy, it is by far the greatest of those is friendship. And I have several friends in here in the audience. Jimmy Ware. Jimmy, this is Jimmy's building. President Kleniewski and Athletic Director Ranieri told me that you take great pride in what you've done. He helped set up this hall here today. And Jimmy was my roommate Jimmy, you were never quite as neat as this hall is right now, and we roomed together before I got married. His lovely wife, Cindy. Dennis and Joan Martindale are here with me. I met them in Milford when I started coaching there for 5 years after college. They would take the shirt off their back and give it to you in the midst of winter. And I really appreciate and value their friendship. I'd also like to thank Tracy Ranieri's mother, Helen Ranieri, who was my first supervising teacher at Center Street in kindergarten. And as a professional educator for 35 years, I often tell my new teachers, you have to do it your own way if you want to control the class, because Mrs. Ranieri taught me that. When she would be upset at a kindergarten, she'd get down on her hands and knees and say, Johnny, don't ever do that again. It upsets me. And Johnny would start crying. And I would say the same thing, and Johnny would spit in my face. Okay. So we learned, but she taught me that lesson. You have to control the kids your way. You have to love the kids, you have to take them to high levels, and you have to support them to get them there. And I really, truly appreciate it, and I'd appreciate if you'd pass that on. I'd like to thank the coaches at Oneonta. You know, as you look at the history, there's great coaches here and a great committee. I want to make sure you're aware how deeply honored and thankful we are for all that you do for us as the inductees. But more importantly, if you imagine all the kids that you've had over the years, immature young children coming to you, and you turn them out as adults. They become something in society, and how you've influenced society over the course of time. Oneonta has been blessed with a plethora of coaches, and I thank them very, very much. I'd like to also special thanks to Don Flewelling, his wife Marianne, and his sons Matt, Curtis, and Derek. And I thank the family because without them and their support, he could not have done all the crazy things he did. I mean, he would coach a basketball game here in Oneonta on Saturday, get in a car, drive to New York City, sleep in the back of the car in his bright red Dragon jacket with white letters, and he would wait for someone to recruit in Harlem, Brooklyn, wherever, to bring them to Oneonta. And Coach at the time had just taken the reins. I didn't know that he was only 10 years older than I until, matter of fact, we were talking about this ceremony. I'm turning about 60 and he's turning about 70. And I've never known a man with such great passion. Now, Coach, I need to tell you, and Kevin Crotier, who's here, by the way, and Kevin was the guy when he brought him into the program, because I was here, Steve Walcott, Jackie Dalton, Steve Blackman were here, but we did not have a point guard. I masqueraded as that in my sophomore year. And Kevin came in and made things work. He really did. And 3 years after I graduated, into the national finals, and I was very proud of that because I was in Albany watching you guys beat Albany in Albany, and I thought Kevin Crotier was going to get. I didn't know how he was going to get out there alive because he just absolutely drove Albany nuts and practically single-handedly won that game in Albany against Albany, and those were big rivals in those days. But Coach Floyd would have us do nutty things like go out here on this hill, and you get at the bottom and you'd race to the top, anything goes, just get to the top first. Then he'd decide he's going to make us run around campus, as Kevin knew some of the guys from New York City that were very creative, knew how to cut corners and shorten the task. They never came in first, but they did cut down the route. Then he had this brilliant idea one time of getting bikes and having us ride like a 20-mile route. Coach, guys from Harlem and New York City that only rode buses and didn't even drive cars, and you asked them to go get a bike? They had no brakes, and we're going up and down these hills. They're going down like they're crazy. I don't know how they didn't all get killed, but those are some of the techniques that I remember. I remember the hard practices in the gyms. I remember practicing on New Year's Eve several years in a row because we had a tournament because he didn't want us to get in trouble. I remember his wife working at all the games and raising $5 or $6 for the athletic program that I don't think we appreciated in those days, but I wanted to make sure that you knew I appreciated it today. So I'd like to thank Don Flewelling and for all the things that he did for my life. Now, what did I learn at Oneonta? I'm an educator, and I think that President Kleniewski would agree with this, and Tracy Ranieri. Athletics is not about wins and losses. Athletics is about the game of life. And that's really what I learned at Oneonta. I came from a very hard situation. I've gone on into educational administration for the last 35 years. And I've learned that athletics is teaching you about the game of life. And everything I learned here actually took me from a person that actually knew very little to a person who knew a lot. and working with our teammates that we thought we could make society better just by working hard, by making people who came to our games feel proud of us, that we could change the human condition of other people around us because we were entertainment. Those are the things that I remember. I don't even remember the wins and losses, but I remember those things. So again, it gives me a great deal of honor to accept this nomination, but I do so on behalf of my mother, my father, my family, because they're an Hall of Fame family, and I thank you very much. Thank you.
Our next inductee was a member of our men's lacrosse program from 1996 to 1999. He was a member of our first and only to date men's lacrosse team in 1999. He was the Empire Lacrosse League Defensive Player of the Year in 1998. He was a three-time Empire Lacrosse League All-Conference selection, and he helped lead his team from the goal position, being a goalie, to 2 Empire Lacrosse League championships. Here to present John Pufky is Ms. Lindsay Conroy.
Thank you, Jeff, and the rest of the administration for having me here today. I'm honored that my friend John Pufky has asked me to introduce him. I've known John and his family for years as we grew up in the small town of Endwell near Binghamton. Played field hockey with his sister and always was in awe of Big Brother John, who not only was a phenomenal lacrosse player for our high school, but as well as an ice hockey goalie. As Jeff stated, John's accomplishments as a college athlete are impressive, but his commitment to lacrosse didn't end when he left the Red Dragon field. John and I have been working together for 9 years. John's a 4th grade teacher at May Memorial Elementary School. When I got to join the staff there, it was a privilege to be working with John as an educator. John is coach for our boys lacrosse field team for about 7 years. I was lucky enough to drag him over to the girls' side about 5 or 6 years ago. John was kind of thrown into that world of the women's lacrosse game. He wholeheartedly accepted this position and all the thrills and obstacles that come with it. While coaching is both demanding and rewarding, coaching teenage girls in particular always proves to be challenging. I think we've prepared him, as John now has 3 daughters, that he's going to be able to handle on the way through. It's because of some of these challenges that John's role as a coach is much more than teaching the skills and strategies of the game. John teaches his athletes to have pride in their team, school, and themselves. For example, and this might embarrass you a little bit, but that's okay. At the beginning of the season, John brings his girls together, and they create a team flag. Throughout the season, he gives each girl the opportunity to represent themselves on the team flag. Even though the players put something on there individually, they all know that it represents the team. Those are the things that John does outside of the normal boxes of the X and O's, the strategies of the game, that brings his team together every year. Something that John has given not only to his players, but also to myself, is self-confidence. The self-confidence to be strong individuals on and off the field. The self-confidence to take chances on the playing field. The self-confidence for a young woman who may not be as comfortable as others and gets her to come out on the field and come out of her shell. Taking chances to succeed no matter in what situation they may find themselves in. Every year we have a group of athletes, and I usually take the better ones and I leave John with some of our favorites. He gets those girls to come out of their shell and he brings them to a whole new level. He gets them to know the game of lacrosse, he gets them to understand it, but most importantly, love the game of lacrosse. Not only is John a great role model and coach for his athletes, he is also an invaluable resource for me as a coach. I count on him to work with our goalies, obviously a position he knows a few things about. I rely on his ability to read the X's and O's of the game and his insight on how to break through a defense or how to stop the opponent's attack. But what I really love is how John knows exactly what to say to me to get me through a halftime speech or to keep me composed in the middle of a tough, important game. I always have to just look over and know that he can give me the, it's all right, we got this, or let's kick it into high gear. All these qualities that make John a great coach are also showcased in his teaching. Each year, his students feel like they are on a team because of the atmosphere he creates in his classroom. He connects to his students, and they value his lasting experiences. This is most evident when those same fourth graders choose him year in and year out to represent them when they graduate. They choose him as a distinguished teacher at commencement. John has given so much to our school community and our lacrosse program, and I consider myself honored to be around him on a daily basis. I can tell you most importantly, John has given me his friendship, and knowing that I can depend on him on and off the field has made my teaching and coaching experience that much better. Congratulations, John, and I cannot think of anyone else who deserves this more than you.
I'd like to start by thanking my fellow inductees. Congratulations. I'd like to thank Oneonta, the Hall of Fame committee. I'd like to thank my teammates, my family, my coach Jim Nagel, who brought me here, but especially the teammates. I've been thinking a lot about my time here the last few weeks, and the bonds that are formed between your college teammates are really bonds that, unless you played a sport at the college level, you don't really understand. You spend countless hours together, leaning on each other, playing in the freezing cold, in the mud, 4 or 5 hour long bus rides. It's those bonds that make the memories here at Oneonta so vivid. I came to Oneonta in 1995, and I chose Oneonta for a variety of reasons. A fantastic education program, proximity to home, and probably the biggest reason, as I mentioned, was Jim Nagel. When I first came here in 1995, the preseason rankings came out. We were dead last at the bottom of what was the Empire Lacrosse League. When I graduated in 1999, we were in the top 10 nationally, and that was due in huge part to Coach Nagel. Over the 4 years, we became a team together, a family in the truest sense of the word. Coach Nagel imparted to us that, one of the great things he taught me was that no part is greater than the sum. We celebrated victories together. We took losses together. We had famous victories over Cortland my senior year, and Springfield, both nationally ranked teams. But no matter the outcome, we celebrated together as a single unit. And that true sense of family cannot have been accomplished without a great leader, and that was Jim. From my freshman year to my senior year, he had a plan for every member of the team, and everybody knew their role. Early on, in my freshman, sophomore year, Coach scheduled some pretty tough games outside of our conference. A lot of times, those outcomes were tough to deal with. A lot of times, we were laughed at. But what Coach taught me, and all of us, as we walked off the field, he said, remember. Remember that feeling that's inside and you hold on to it. We returned to those same places 2 or 3 years later, and the results were very different. We were victorious. And I think perhaps my most favorite memory was when, for the first time in school history, we beat our neighbors across the street. And it was a fantastic night. Sports are the laboratory of life. And the lessons I've learned I'll always carry with me in both of my worlds, as a coach, like Lindsay said, with my girls, and as a fourth grade teacher. I try to impart in both my pupils and my players what Coach Nagel taught me, that while it's extremely important to know where you're going, it's more important to remember where you've been. I'm honored to be inducted today, and I think the true understanding of what this all means today was I had a chance to walk around with my 3 daughters today, 6, 3, and 1, kind of a chance of showing them where I lived, where I ate, played lacrosse, went to class, and I answered 1,000 questions. Had a chance to tell them some stories about my days here. But my most important role as a parent, I try and teach my 3 daughters, eat right, play fair, try hard, but most importantly, to always remember. Remember where you've been, and that's the lesson I learned here at Oneonta. I want to thank Oneonta again. Thank you to my teammates. I want to thank my mom and dad, my family who's here today, and most importantly, my beautiful wife, Heather. And truly, I came to Oneonta as a boy, and I left here a man. Thank you.
Well, certainly the next group of individuals that we will be meeting were groundbreaking. They set the stage for a lot of things here at Oneonta. They were the first women's athletics team to ever qualify for a national tournament. They won the state tournament, they won the Eastern Regionals, and then they went to Princeton. And at Princeton, they came in 3rd place, which at that time was an incredible, incredible accomplishment. Through the beauty of technology, Coach Brenda Meese, who was the coach that year, was not able, she was here with us last night, which we truly appreciate the fact that she was able to make it here. She's still coaching lacrosse, field hockey. She's still coaching field hockey. I have lacrosse on my mind because of John. Still coaching field hockey and still mentoring young ladies in the sport of field hockey and in life. So just bear with me a moment here and we'll try and get this going. Coach Brenda Meese has a special presentation.
Good morning. I'd like to begin by thanking the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for choosing the 1979 field hockey team for inclusion in the 2012 class. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce that team today as a team of distinction, a team that won a state and regional title, as well as finishing 3rd in the nation in Division III. I'd like to start by thanking a number of individuals for their help and support during that extraordinary season. Among them are Department Chair Joan Kingsley, Athletic Director Carol Blazina, Athletic Trainer Seeley Smith, our #1 fan Lee Abbott, who I could always hear in the crowd yelling, "Go, go, go." A debt of gratitude also goes to former head coach Barb Blodgett. I also cannot forget the folks who helped make things run, Gladys Arnold, Flo Timlin, and Bev Frazier. But now to the group to be honored. I was very lucky to step into my first head coaching opportunity in field hockey in 1979. What an experience to start a career. That team was returning a number of veterans in major positions, as well as some really great young freshmen. It was a team that had been so close they could taste it in past years, and this became the year that they would be able to take that step into the realm of champions. They were hardworking, unselfish, never gave up, and fought together game after game. Our success did not come from a few outstanding individuals, but because the team was so solid from top to bottom. Luck and opportunity are both often parts of success, and it was so true in 1979. 4 years earlier, there were no national champions for women in field hockey. We played in the AIAW era, the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. It was the first organization that offered national championships for women and was women organized and women run. The first national field hockey championship was held in 1975, but it was open division. In 1979, the AIAW offered the first divisional tournament. We had 16 teams in 3 divisions competing at Princeton at the finals. That was 48 teams on 6 fields. It was a 4-day tournament in which you had to qualify through state and regional play. We won the Eastern Regional Championship that year and came in as 4th seed at the national championships. Oneonta had to play a game a day over 4 days to get to that top 4. Can you imagine a team today playing 4 games in a row for a national title? It was survival of the fittest. We won the first round over Calvin, advanced to the semis over Hollins, but ran into top-ranked F&M in the semis. It was a hard-fought game that went back and forth. We tied it up with just a minute to go in regulation. We played on to a draw in 2 overtime periods. one set of penalty strokes, and lost on the last stroke of the second set. It was hard to come back from that loss the next morning to play at 8:30 a.m. in the morning on December 1st on a field covered in frost. But we did, winning in overtime in the last 2 minutes of the second period. It was an incredible run. I have so many memories of that season. Among the highlights for me were beating Syracuse and Colgate, both Division I teams, a couple days apart. Colgate went on to finish second in the Division II national tournament. Dropping our last 2 games in regular season and overtime, and then making that extraordinary run through 3 tournaments without a loss till the semis. Winning the state tournament at Oneonta, beating Hartwick in strokes at Eastern Regional Finals. Being able to have the privilege of coaching these young women through extraordinary time, watching them grow week after week and game after game. Times in hockey have changed. You no longer do a bully to start the game. There's no such thing as high sticks. There are no offsides. You can turn a circle with the ball and not be called for obstruction. Substitution is now unlimited, and you can re-enter the game. The game is hardly ever played on real grass these days, and field conditions are often not a factor. But the basics are still there. A team that works hard, sets high goals, and dreams big dreams as you did is often the one that will be most successful. I am very proud of having been that part of your success in 1979. You were my first field hockey team, and you still hold a special place in my life and my career. Congratulations on receiving this honor, and once again, thanks for the privilege of letting me be your coach. It is a memory I will always cherish. To my starters, forwards Madeline, Carol, Allison, and Colleen. Mids Diane Reeby, Mary, and Diane Van Tile. Backs Karen, Verona, and Ginger. And goalkeeper Christine. Our super subs, Amy, Shane, Jenny, Lou, and Heather. And our bench that made us better every day, Carolyn, Marlene, Merrill, Amy Luddick, Amy Robbins, Pat, and Colleen Skirkus. Congratulations, and well done. Good morning. I'd like to begin by thanking the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for choosing the 1979 field hockey team for
instant replay. Okay, at this time, it gives me great pleasure to call each member forward from that 1979 field hockey team. If you could please come forward and receive your medallion and your certificate. Madeline Beeman Felice. Jenny Bertino Sparts. Ginger Cobb Sonegren. Meryl Koptuich Gizondo. Colleen Larson Plantier. Patricia Mayer Blanche. Allison Merchant Spagnoletti. Verona Poiser. Heather Prophet Conklin. Diane Reeby Starr. Louise Ross Lansing. Colleen Skirkus Brannon. Diane Van Tile Oles. Mary Watros. Karen Zulke Knopf. Once again, let's have it for our 1979 field hockey squad. Congratulations. We're going to have a photo op with our team and Dr. Kleniewski. Yeah, we'll have it. By tile. I know you were good. We certainly would be remiss if we didn't allow one of our captains to speak on behalf of the team as well. So I'd like to keep Diane Van Tile, if you could come back up, please. One of our team captains from that year, Diane Van Tile.
Thank you. This is absolutely amazing. We've been gone 33 years, a lot of us, and to come back to this and to see everybody here, to be with you and to be with these inductees, many of us were just about speechless, and if you knew us, you'd be like, that's amazing. So, on behalf of the 1979 field hockey team, we would like to acknowledge this honor, and we are humbled but proud to be here. This is an honor that is long overdue, and we are here to celebrate our accomplishments. Any one of these women could be where I am. That's the kind of team we had. It wasn't just about me, it wasn't about you, it was about us. And we were proud of that, and we still are proud of that. I wasn't quite sure what to say today because it's truly a team effort to get a record of 17-5 back in 1979, competing with colleges that were D1, D2, and D3. So it was a lot of hard work and perseverance and teamwork, and we were very motivated. We were a team that we were tenacious, we were scrappy, we were tough, we were fast, and we didn't like to lose. I have to be honest though, after 33 years and being back together, it's my teammates I remember the most. I can't really tell you scores, or I can't tell you who scored. I just know when we all got the call, I'm sure we all felt like I did, that we couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to be back with these women behind me. They're strong, they're committed, and I'm just without words today because to be here is very humbling. We are also very excited to see Brenda. Many of us haven't seen her in 33 years, so for her to come in, fly in last night, and spend time with us, I even got to eat dinner with her, was really a privilege. And then she goes and she hands all of us this book that's just filled with everything that I forgot and a lot of people behind me forgot. So that was really amazing to get that from Brenda. It was just really very generous of her, and it speaks volumes about the coach that we got to work with. And she really had her work cut out for her because we had played under a very motivating coach, Barbara Blodgett. And so in her first year, to take on a group that was really ready to work and to win, she was really great. She treated us with respect, she treated us with grace, and she just kept prompting and really letting us, work together and being very, very respectful of things that we already had going on. So now that many of the years have gone by and we're back together, I think that's another thing that we could say as a team, that now that we're back together, I know for me, I want to stay in contact with a lot of these women, and I know they feel the same way. So again, we're just really honored, and we just thank you for this recognition.
Okay, at this time, that concludes our program. What we'd like to do is we would like everyone to remain seated while we get our Hall of Famers out to the atrium and out to the wall so that we can unveil the plaques that are up on the wall. So we just ask you to bear with us for a few moments while we ask our Hall of Famers to please make your way out to the atrium where we can take photos. There will be plenty of photo opportunities for you.